20. Switzerland. Nominal GDP $678.57 billion. GDP $517.17 billion. 19. Saudi Arabia. Nominal GDP $683.82 billion. GDP $1.77 trillion. 18. Netherlands. Nominal GDP $849.48 billion. GDP $2.17 trillion. 17. Turkey. Nominal GDP $849.48 billion. GDP $2.17 trillion. 16. Indonesia. Nominal GDP $1.01 trillion. GDP $3.24 trillion. 15. Mexico. Nominal GDP $1.15 trillion. GDP $2.45 trillion. 14. Spain. Nominal GDP $1.31 trillion. GDP $1.77 trillion. 13. Australia. Nominal GDP $1.38 trillion. GDP $1.24 trillion. 12. Russia. Nominal GDP $1.52 trillion. GDP $4.01 trillion. 11. South Korea. Nominal GDP $1.53 trillion. GDP $2.02 trillion. 10. Canada. Nominal GDP $1.65 trillion. GDP $1.76 trillion. 9. Italy. Nominal GDP $1.93 trillion. GDP $2.31 trillion. 8. Brazil. Nominal GDP $2.05 trillion. GDP $3.24 trillion. 7. France. Nominal GDP $2.58 trillion. GDP $2.83 trillion. 6. India. Nominal GDP $2.61 trillion. GDP $9.45 trillion. 5. United Kingdom. Nominal GDP $2.62 trillion. GDP $2.91 trillion. 4. Germany. Nominal GDP $3.68 trillion. GDP $4.17 trillion. 3. Japan. Nominal GDP $4.87 trillion. GDP $5.42 trillion. 2. China. Nominal GDP $12.01 trillion. GDP $23.15 trillion. 1. United States. Nominal GDP $19.39 trillion. GDP $19.39 trillion. Thanks for watching.